Sisters who watch. Sisters who watch. Sisters who watch.
Wicked!
Hey y'all, hey! Welcome to Sisters Who Watch.
Hello, I'm Shelby.
And I'm Laura, and we're sisters who watch everything. TV, movies, sports, concerts, and even witches singing in pink and green. We love to watch, and we love talking about it even more. Today we're watching...
Wicked! The theatrical adaptation of the hit Broadway musical. We're Defying Gravity!
Yes, we're leaving space for the lyrics of Defying Gravity right now. And before we get into our episode, please make sure you're giving Sisters Who Watch 5 stars wherever you listen. Rate, download, subscribe, follow us on social media at Sisters Who Watch, buy our merch online, do listener support on Spotify, all that good stuff. We have two very special guests with us. Please introduce them.
Yes! Thrilled to have Olivia and Emily Paruk from the Sisters in the Stars podcast with us today. Welcome.
Thank you.
Yes! Especially exciting because they're fellow sisters who talk all things entertainment. I mean, perfect. Like, you can't leave it out. I met Emily and Olivia at the Podcast Movement Conference in August after a presentation, and it's just so exciting, you know? We've manifested, made this happen a few months later.
Absolutely. I still remember the time of scrolling through the podcast presenters and seeing Sisters Who Watch, and I was like, oh my gosh, Olivia, oh my gosh, there are two other sisters who watch movies, do a podcast, we have to meet them. And now here we are. Absolutely.
And we'd love for y'all to tell our audience a bit about Sisters in the Stars. What's your podcast about? Where can they find you?
Sure. So, yeah, my name's Emily. I'm the little sister. Sisters in the Stars, where mainly we focus on films and movies and television. So that's our entertainment that we review. And so we dive deep into the analysis of films, the breakdown of the story and how it was made, the movie making of the film, what we liked. And Olivia always generally has a moment of improvement that she would like to make to the movie and film. So you can find us on our website, Sisters in the Stars, Instagram, and Olivia just recently got us on YouTube, which is really exciting. I know we're taking the next plunge, so getting serious with Sisters in the Stars.
What's been like one of your favorite movies this year besides Wicked that you can recommend?
We Live in Time. I thought that was so sweet. I mean, I love Florence Pugh and Andrew Garfield, and they had great chemistry, and I'm so glad that someone cast Florence Pugh as a chef because she is so chefy. So that was so great to see her in like her element, and I just really loved it. And because I have to throw in a different one, honestly, I still think about Challengers, not gonna lie.
Yes.
Challengers was a good one. Oh man, the tension, the three triangle. I just am still craving to go watch it again.
Both strong picks. Two movies I really enjoyed, and we also reviewed both of them on our podcast because we both really enjoyed them. So I like the picks.
Very aligned. We have similar taste.
The sister mindset. Absolutely.
That's for sure. Girlies, you know, those are the movies for us.
If you guys like our podcast, you'll definitely love Emily and Olivia's podcast. So go support them and check them out.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Of course.
All right, Shelby, do you want to give us a background of Wicked?
Yes, let's get into it. As always, here's the logline. Elphaba, a misunderstood young woman because of her green skin, and Glinda, a popular girl, become friends at Shiz University in the Land of Oz. After an encounter with the wonderful Wizard of Oz, their friendship reaches a crossroads. Ooh. And of course, right, this film is based on the hit Broadway musical that debuted in 2003, which is based on the 1990 book, Wicked, the Life and Times of the Wicked Witch of the West, which is based on the original Wizard of Oz. So IP on IP on IP, people. Try to keep up. It's a lot. And what's so fun is Laura and I actually saw the Broadway show years ago. It was for your birthday, Laura, right?
Yes. I feel like Wicked was so nostalgic for us, you know, growing up. The soundtrack was really popular and I really wanted to see the show. Right, Shelby and I grew up in New York, so as a New York City suburb kid, we're like, we gotta go see Wicked, we gotta go to Broadway, and then our dad surprised us and we got to see it for my birthday. I think I was a tween. I was really young. I don't remember exactly what age, but I remember loving it. It was so, so good. And I memorized Defying Gravity and For Good on my little iPod or phone, whatever it was at the time. And I was really excited about the cast. I mean, so many great names. Ariana Grande, Cynthia Erivo, Jonathan Bailey from Bridgerton, of course. I know Shelby loves Bridgerton.
Oh yeah, we're big fans. Absolutely, stands.
On out. See, you should be watching Bridgerton.
I saw the first season. She's trying to get me to watch 2 and 3. Have not yet, but I'm glad y'all are on the same page.
Olivia skipped season 2 though, so
I know.
I can't believe it.
I know. I need to go back.
I don't know, but I like maybe I'm like with Laura. I was like kind of feeling it, but then I was like, it's the same story. I'm like, eh. But then I got back on board. I'm with you, Shelby. They should watch it.
Good, and it's peak Jonathan Bailey. You guys are
Now I have so much more respect, so I gotta go back. I need more Jonathan in my life. So Jonathan Bailey is just stunning. Love. No notes. That's except maybe I want more.
Fair point. I think I also need more Jonathan Bailey in my life. He really killed it in this movie for sure. And it's also interesting, Jon M. was the director of Wicked, who did Crazy Rich Asians, right, Shelby?
Yes. Jon M. is an Asian American director, so like really big deal for like him to like direct a movie like this. Huge for representation. You really don't see it often. I was at an event earlier this year where Gold House, which is like an entertainment organization that's all about increasing Asian representation in entertainment, was talking about how excited they were and what a big deal it was. So I definitely think in the entertainment circles, people were very excited for him to have this moment. And he also had directed In the Heights, which we saw. So he's dabbled in musicals before. This movie was distributed and developed by Universal Pictures, who actually got the right to the book decades ago, but apparently were struggling to adapt it into a film and adapted it into the Broadway show first. And right when that crushed, they were like, okay, we gotta really try to make the film happen. But they've had a lot of directors attached and different actresses. Like apparently Lady Gaga years ago was supposed to be in it.
Imagine.
I was like, wait, who is she supposed to play?
I think Elphaba. I'm not so. Yeah.
Oh, that just seems so weird now that Cynthia Erivo, it's just like she is Elphaba. That feels so right.
It's hard to imagine anyone else. A lot of people were coveting these roles, but not until Jon M. got involved were they really like, okay, we're gonna make this. And I'm so happy they did, because spoiler alert, one of my favorite movies of the year.
I guess we could share a little bit about our background and in connection with Wicked. Liv and I grew up in northern Wisconsin and in Maine. So we were not around New York. Our parents hate the city. So and we never saw Wicked on Broadway. No. To this day, I've still never seen the Broadway performance of Wicked, but at least I knew of it. I obviously know the hype around Wicked, and all my friends are like, Emily, you have to go see Wicked on Broadway. Still plan to one day, but it wasn't before the movie, and of course I had to go see the movie. So to me, I still don't even know how it ends. I don't know how the plot ends. So I'm seeing how long I can go without spoiler of like the plot. So we'll see how long that lasts.
And I would say equally to Emily, like obviously knew the hype, and this is kind of like a thing we always confess on our podcast, that it's a little, we're not always the biggest musical fans, which is kind of crazy, since we do a lot and we grew up doing theater, and mostly you have access to musical theater, but I think Emily and I always, we're big story people, and so we're not always impressed by musical stories. They seem sometimes a little shallow. We were really excited for this movie, but also to see, because a lot of people who know us are like, you're going to see Wicked, like the musical. How's that going to go? And I think everyone was pleasantly surprised that we enjoyed it a lot.
I like a good musical, but they're sometimes hard to make well, particularly theatrically. We've seen that even this year. Like, I thought the Mean Girls musical wasn't great. That came out in January. Joker 2, we recorded an episode on that. That was by far one of the worst movies I've seen this year, and they just not execute well on the musical elements. So I think if you're trying to make a good musical, it's just hard to do well.
yeah, because you have to balance the pacing of the songs and how it's moving the story along. But I still didn't know for a long time that Wicked was this is just part one. I'm so glad someone told me because that would have been really bad if I went into this movie thinking that it was the whole plot, the whole shebang. But it was not, and I'm so glad it wasn't actually because it felt so well paced and the story was still so strong, and I can't believe that all of that is condensed into one act in this stage production, because it felt really right that it is this long to be able to fully connect with these characters, and I think that's why it didn't bother me so much that it was a musical because we had so many scenes. They're taking their time for the character development, which I'm really, really happy about.
They've been touring Wicked the musical, right, all over the country, like the past however many months, and it was in San Francisco. So I had a friend who just saw it and then saw the movie. And she was like, I like the movie better than the actual musical for what you were saying, because the movie was longer and, you know, it was act one. So she was like, oh, the musical was kind of confusing. I didn't really understand what was happening, but they were able to flesh out, you know, more of those details, give you more background, kind of allow more space for that.
My expectations were very high. Like, it was one of our most anticipated titles of the year. Like, beginning of each year, Laura and I do an episode on that, and Wicked was in there, so we were very excited for it. And coming out, I was surprised because I had heard it was going to be long. You know, I knew it was the part one, and the recent part ones, part twos aren't always the best. They kind of leave you like a little annoyed. But I thought it was so well done, and maybe because they kept like that act one structure of the play and they followed it so well. I came out so happy. I was in my pink and green. We saw it with one of my line sisters. We dressed up. It was great. I was feeling it. We were on a high. I was singing the music. I was like looking for all the analysis. I was just ready to like dive in.
Yes. I think similar to Shelby, my expectations were very, very high, right? The press tour, the marketing tour was giving Barbie. Ariana and Cynthia were just everywhere in their pink and green for like the past 4 months, you know? So I think everyone was talking about Wicked, right? We had the Gladiator Wicked phenomenon too,
Wicked.
right? Glicked. Tried to be Barbenheimer. I don't not the same, but still. And I just feel like there was a lot of talk around the movie, right? We have Ariana and her new man, you know, Ethan Slater, aka
SpongeBob,
SpongeBob. Yes.
who
So
we saw on
I was
Broadway too.
yes, another Broadway kid. I was intrigued to see them in the movie together, and everyone I knew was saying, "Oh, this is the best movie ever." Like people were crying. Like I had just heard the most wild things about people raving for this movie. So my expectations were really high. I will say I think the movie was maybe a little bit overhyped, because it made it seem like this was going to be the best movie I've ever seen. But I did think it was really good. I thought it was well done.
I definitely also relate to the sort of, you know, when movies get so much attention, you're like, is this really gonna be the best movie
Right.
ever? But I think for like for us, like for a musical movie, like that almost feels like a different category of movie. Like
Mhm.
it won't be the same as like yeah, like Challengers is like a totally different vibe than like Wicked. You know, it's like hard to compare the two even.
I think that's a good point. And I will say, like, for a Broadway film adaptation, it had the best opening weekend ever at the box office. So, again, like, if you compare it to Barbie, it didn't do as well as Barbie. But for the type of movie it was, a musical, it crushed. So, I think that caveat is like helpful. Like, for a musical, this is like the best kind of outcome you can expect or like want.
I was wondering this. I was like, oh, like all the people going to Wicked are gonna be like us, you know, kind of young woman. The amount of children we saw it on Discounted Tuesday, like Tuesday at like 5:30, and there were so many kids there. What was your showing like? Were there a lot of kids?
We unfortunately like, didn't buy tickets early enough. And you know, it was selling out.
Yes.
And me coming from Maine, I'm not used to that. I'm not used to things selling out in Maine. So we were trying to plan tickets. So we actually went to like a really late showing on a Saturday night. So it did happen to be a lot of like teens, but it was still great to see how many like big groups of people were showing up, like in green and pink, and
Cute.
like girlfriends with their boyfriends, or like the whole group going, and then after the credits rolled, like so many people, we just stayed in the theater. Like we couldn't leave the space. We wanted it to keep going. So that was our movie experience, where there's like groups of like definitely musical theater people, but luckily we didn't have anyone singing. I heard that was a phenomenon, that people were worried about, it becoming a sing along in the movie theater, but
Oh,
luckily
no.
I didn't experience any of that.
I'm in Maine. So the movie theater, it's always really funny talking to Emily, who's has more people going to seeing the movies. But I would say this movie, in my experience, I went like a midday, randomly, like kind of matinee on, it may have been a Tuesday too, which is kind of funny. And it actually was pretty busy. Like it's the movie that's been the most busy I've ever seen in Maine for a while. Like,
Wow.
I wasn't alone, so that's nice. And I would say the makeup seemed like older theater kids, like musical theater kids, and a lot of like older women. Maybe the retirement home went to that showing. That's what it felt like. But it was really sweet to see all these like older couples going to see Wicked, which just felt like not what I would expect, but it was very sweet, and it was fun to see. So I think, but I have seen online, it seems like so many little kids are going to see this movie, which hadn't expected. That just goes to show kind of the power of the images that Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande and the marketing team have done. Like they've really got the princess like vibes like out there, and I think everyone's really excited for that, which is fun.
I am curious to know, like, if this was a movie when I was a kid, how I would have reacted to it and how I would have connected to it, just because I wasn't able to get to Broadway, but film luckily does make these sort of stories more accessible to everybody, which is really exciting. And especially having a lead like Cynthia Erivo in the film, it's just so great to have diversity in the cast, and to have, kids growing up watching this with stories that, Liv and I always talk about, like what we watch matters and what we see on the screen matters and who we see there. And so to have a great movie with like two powerful women leads, it's really refreshing to have that be the most popular thing in the box office right now.
The range of the cast themselves, and having, a character be in a wheelchair and having a dance scene, and just for me, like I think that was like, I can't remember the last time I've seen a movie with somebody in a wheelchair who's been like a main character. So I just also felt like that was really special, and the two actresses who played the little and the older are actual, you like, they have wheelchairs themselves, and I think like that representation for people with disabilities or whatnot, like, are should be seen in on TV. And if I was a young kid, I think I would really relate to that as well.
It's not your typical kids family movie, it's definitely like way more inclusive than the kids movies that we grew up with. So I loved seeing, honestly, like how many kids were in the theater. It felt like family night. Like, I'm not kidding. It was like family movie night. There was crying, there was laughing, there was talking by kids. I was like,
So
what
many
am I?
kids.
A lot of kids.
It's
But
like, am
I'm
I a Despicable Me? Like, that's what it felt like. There were so many
honestly,
kids.
I was very surprised by that. But I like that at least they are getting a story that's about like what it means to be different and feel like an outsider. The fact that they're hopefully understanding that message and getting that across, like, I think that's great. To your point on like the casting, and I feel like that can lead us into some of like the memorable moments and like favorite moments. For me, I think the fact that you had a Black queer woman and Cynthia Erivo as the star is like huge. The Nessa Rose character, I looked it up to like see like if the actors playing her were actually in a wheelchair, and they were, and I was like, whoa, like you rarely see that authentic casting. I think in general, right, like Jonathan Bailey is also a queer man. Like, the fact that they had him as like the heartthrob, and the fact that like everyone in the movie was attracted to him, from Bo and Yang to Ariana Grande, that's really powerful. The casting, the production, development team, they deserve the credit, because I think it's a cast that 5 years ago, if they were making this, would they have picked such like diverse up and coming actors? They were able to create such a diverse cast and take risks on people. I love it. And you rarely see that in movies these days. So that's definitely a highlight for me.
It also didn't feel like tokenization, because I think that often really happens with including like diverse cast. I think that this be idea of like, oh, we just happen to have like the the person of color characters. See, like they're in the background. It's diverse. Where this movie felt truly authentic and sort of like how I, because my sister and I, we talk a lot about the progression and wanting to see the film industry move forward. And this sort of, I feel like, is now kind of my poster child of see, like, it's not like, I don't think anyone could really be like, these characters took away from the movie, and I know that there was discourse before the movie came out that, the casting like of Cynthia Erivo or other characters might, take away from the film. And for me, like, I think it was just like an example of no, I had added so much. Look, it's beautiful and amazing, and can't we all just have movies
Yeah.
more like this?
Like, look at all the humans that are on this planet, and they should all be seen on the screen.
And we talked about this in our Mean Girls episode specifically. I'm thinking about this, like how a lot of these movies are doing like diversity and inclusion bingo, like, oh, gay, trans, non-binary, like, and just like that, we talked about this too, just having diversity for the sake of diversity, whereas in this movie it did feel authentic and right, giving people a backstory and not just having someone in a wheelchair, but like giving them real story and real development, because so often these movies don't do that with their diverse characters. So I really enjoyed that. I think this is kind of the blueprint for having, right, a really diverse cast and doing it well.
So I'd love to hear from Shelby and Laura. What were kind of the big thing when you walked away from the film that you remembered specifically about, any aspect of the production? Like, what was the thing that you're like, oh yes, that's what I remember?
For me, it was the design. So I'm an AKA, so that's my sorority, and the colors are pink and green. So of course I have a little pink and green on. So I already love pink and green. And so like coming into it, seeing all the marketing and press about the pink and green, and then the set and costume, I was like blown away. Like I ate it up. It was perfect for me. But once you see the movie and you realize they actually created like sets, right? It wasn't AI, like there was maybe some VFX, but it was these beautiful, huge sets, and like the costumes were just stunning. There was so much care put to all of it. And so I was just blown away by all things design, the set, the costumes, the pink and green aesthetic. I was blown away. And I'm still thinking about it. I'm like, wow, it's so impressive. And we watched like a Wicked special that was on Peacock. He's right. We were, after seeing the movie, we were in, guys. We had to keep getting the Wicked content. They showed the set and they explained like the process of building it, as well as like the process of making the costumes. And there's just so much care and detail, and it showed. I feel like sometimes with design, it's like, oh, okay, that doesn't really look fake, or like, oh, it's clearly like a set where there's nothing behind it. But no, like they built Shiz University, they built, Oz, and you can tell it was very, very well done.
The costumes are really fantastic. And Shelby and I looked this up, and there's also in Target, we saw there was like a whole section dedicated to the costume designer.
Paul Tazewell.
Paul Tazewell did the costumes for Wicked. He also did the costumes for Hamilton, and he's fantastic. So I was just really excited that he's getting his flowers. He had his face on the display in Target. I was like, oh my gosh, Shelby, like that's who we saw in the Wicked special. So very happy for him. Hoping for, Oscar nominations for costume and set design. I feel like Wicked could be a shoe-in for that. So that was definitely a highlight for me. I know, Shelby, you really liked Fiyero and Elphaba bonding. There was a little chemistry with them, right?
Yes, that was one of my favorite moments. One, we've already established I'm a Jonathan Bailey fan. Season 2 of Bridgerton is great. Gotta watch that for him. And
Will do, noted.
And I'm a rom-com girly, so any like enemies to lovers storylines, great for me. I also love when I can sense like chemistry. And when they first had their meet cute in the woods, when she's like walking in the dark and he's on the horse and they bump into each other, great initial moment. After the classroom scene where Elphaba uses her powers, but like makes everyone go to sleep except Fiyero, which I clocked. I was like, what's going on there? And they go in the woods and try and save was it a little lion, right? It was like a lion cub.
This is my thought. Doesn't the lion become like the cowardly lion? Like, is that who the lion cub is? That's where my brain
That's what
went.
I thought too. As someone who
That's
doesn't know the
gross.
story, I was like,
I was like,
the cowardly lion.
He becomes the cowardly lion.
Oh.
Whoa.
That went over my head.
I don't know if that's
Right.
or cat, but
I've asked some of my friends to live about this, and they were like, "No, that's just a lion in the woods." But I was like, "But it's a lion in the woods."
Honestly, maybe it's an Easter egg, y'all. It
That's what
could
I'm wondering. I feel like it's an Easter egg. But
I do like the Easter eggs of like putting him in the basket in the bike.
that was so
I
cute.
was like, "Oh, it's Toto."
Yeah, that was good.
The
Wow,
call
y'all
to the
are noticing
original.
things. I did not. I love it.
I think we're just very familiar with the first movie. It's one
our
of our
dad's
dad's favorite.
Aw.
So we watch it a lot.
But I liked Shelby and Laura what you said about the set design and the costumes. They bring the viewers and the audience into the world so much. It's like what Avatar does, creating this amazing set that you just want to live in that space and wanting to go and study at Shiz University and be in that space. So I do hope Wicked does get an Oscar nomination for the set and the costumes because they developed that world so much, and that is like what the power of film can do, because the stage, they just have to transform the space of the theater. And I don't know, I could see how it could get confusing maybe because they have to travel to so many different locations in the stage production. But for film, you can just ship us off anywhere and transport us anywhere you want. So I'm really glad they took a lot of energy into building the set, and it almost gave a little Wonka too, of like
Yeah.
this other magical world. It felt a little bit like Wonka, even though I like this one a lot better.
Yeah. I also had heard that they planted, I forget how many tulips, but they planted like in the beginning, like that field of tulips. Like they planted in England, just like all of these tulips. It's like a fun detail that, it's cool to see on big productions because I think there's times where I'm like, the amount of money that goes into these things, you're like, where is it going? And now, like for a movie like this, you could be like, oh, I could see how that could be like like $100 million, or I forget the total budget, but you can see the care and audiences notice the difference when there's attention and to detail and the care. It is funny how as an audience you can feel that even though what we're just watching are images, but we feel the care behind it.
And I have to also mention the Fiyero and Elphaba connection, because that's what I remember too. You're like, oh, I just want more scenes with them. And then like on the train station, Glinda's like, oh, he's just like acting weird. And we're all like, oh, well, ooh,
Why?
we know why. So I'm also very curious to see where that connection goes in part 2 as someone who doesn't know.
He was like totally a standout for me. I was so shocked. I was like, okay, Jonathan Bailey, just really giving so much serving. There was so much queer energy in this film too. I don't know, maybe that's just me, but it felt really queer coded. And like people who've played Glinda have also felt like she's a little queer too. Like, is she like in love with Elphaba? Or is it like just friends? And I was like, I can kind of see it. Like, there's a lot. Which I appreciate that this film leaned into, also for representation, but just like you mentioned earlier, Shelby, like everyone was in love with Jonathan Bailey's character Fiyero, and I think that was probably one of my favorite things ever. Like it was like the kid-friendly version of Challengers.
I can't.
Great, the parallels.
Another memorable moment for me, every time Bowen Yang was on screen, talking about just loving Jonathan Bailey, like he was just like enamored by him. I loved how when Jonathan Bailey was like, can you do me a favor? And Bowen Yang was like, anything. I'll literally do anything. And he was like, move. He was like, get out my way. He's like, okay. Okay, Fiyero. Bowen Yang is so funny. So I really loved his role in this movie. He was enamored by Jonathan Bailey. Same.
Yes.
Same. Probably the most memorable moment of this whole movie. I mean, the Defying Gravity final scene was insane. That was unbelievable. And all the moments leading up to that, like when they were trying to escape from the wizard and they're like running and the monkeys are like running into the windows, like what? That was so wild. And like I was joking, I know it's like an action movie. I was joking to Shelby, I'm like, why was there more action scenes in this movie than Joker? Like huh?
True facts.
Right? Because Shelby and I were, when we reviewed Joker, we were like, the first movie was like an action movie. Like, where was the action in Joker 2? And this movie literally had more action scenes. It was like, oh my gosh, this is kind of scary. The monkeys flying into the walls. They're trying to scale, the clock tower, right? In the hot air balloon. Ariana Grande is like having to jump and falling off. It was wild. I just loved it. Cynthia Erivo grabs her broom. Like, everything about that scene was just so unbelievable. It was everything I wanted.
I also, speaking on the monkeys, as someone who was terrified by the original Wizard of Oz, and I was most scared of the monkeys, I can confirm that this movie has created another terrifying monkey set for an entire generation. And I'm I was also like, these might be scarier than the original monkeys, and I was terrified of those. So, for all those kids, I wonder how they're doing, because they did a great job of making scary monkeys. Again, there's something about Monkey with Wings that just, ooh.
And they gave these monkeys feelings too. Like, you saw their sadness and their pain, and that is so hard.
Are there any other favorite moments or songs or scenes that y'all had?
Well, there's a couple. I think, speaking back to the beginning, the line about "I don't see color," that line just really stuck out to me, and I thought was funny and also very clever. Kind of the sort of nod to, well, Cynthia Erivo's character Elphaba is green, and to be like, oh, I don't see color, like, that's such, I feel like there's been times I've seen movies try to bring in this sort of new age, or not new age, but like present day conversations in films that just feel so out of place. But this one felt really clever, and I really enjoyed that, and I felt like the delivery of it was really great. I don't know how about you all felt about that line, but that was just, I remember actually snickering to myself in the theater. I was like, you know what, that was pretty clever. It's kind of risky, and I liked how the film was like, no, we're gonna put it in there. I think also for me, I really liked the dance scene. It was such a weird dance, and I kind of love it. I saw one of my sister's friends who's a dancer who had seen the movie, has been trying to learn it, and it's just,
we're talking about the ballroom scene with Elphaba,
and it's weird, but I kind of like it. I also just liked Nessa Rose's character and how she has this beautiful dance with Ethan Slater's character, and I think that's really, I thought that was special, and reminding myself of like, when we think of dance, like, there's so many bodies that can dance, and I just thought that was fun. And yeah, the improvised dance scene, I want to know if that was choreographed. Was it improvised? Like, because it kind of feels like they could have just wung it, even though, like, in the moment, I remembered being a little uncomfy watching this, like, what's happening? But then I liked it. So then, I don't know. So it was something that stuck with me.
I'd have to agree with like that ballroom moment of, I think to me that scene, positive, negative, I'm not sure. It obviously ends in a very positive way with the emotion that Cynthia Erivo expresses, and the way Glinda, like, that's kind of like her transformational moment. That's a really powerful moment. But you're right, the beginning, you're like, they really made everyone in the audience feel really uncomfortable, because you're like, wait, what's going on? And I don't know if that was the right choice, but it ended well.
I also feel like it could have gone quicker. Like, the movie was long, right? It was like 2 hours, 40 minutes or something like that. That's a part where I think they could have cut. I don't know how long we needed to see Cynthia, like, be alone dancing before, like...
I like the
whatever, the, like, freaking dance or whatever it was.
It was so weird, right? Like, it was uncomfortable. And I know the point was to be uncomfortable, but I was like, I don't love this. I don't know, it made her seem kind of like a monster, and everyone was just like, oh my gosh, like, what is she doing? I just thought it was like really strange. It also, right, kind of felt like a little, saviory, like, well, now Glinda accepts her, so now we all can accept the weird girl, So I mean, I guess that was the point, but yeah, I just thought that was, yes, it came across.
I think for me, I realized what the weakness of that scene was for me was like instead of it being Elphaba's moment of power of being an outsider in this group, it made her like have to be saved by Glinda, by
Yeah.
the popular one. Instead of Glinda feeling so sorry for Elphaba, I wanted Glinda to feel moved by Elphaba and by her power and strength,
Yeah.
instead of Glinda being like, oh, this poor little puppy dog alone in the center. I'm gonna make her feel accepted. Like that just didn't sit right with me. And so I think that was the issue for me with that scene. It was I wanted it to be Elphaba's moment. I wanted it to be her convincing Glinda to be like, this is okay. Like it's okay to be different.
Every time we see Glinda, it's like really about Glinda. Not really about Elphaba. It's like Glinda and like
Literally true.
popular. I mean, the song "Popular." That you just have to listen to lyrics, and that's all you need to know.
But yeah, that's Glinda's character in a nutshell. We're already kind of talking a little bit about like least favorite moments. At least for us, the weird dance scene wasn't our favorite. I feel like another moment I didn't love was Dr. Dillamond and the animals being kicked out of Shiz. I think mostly just because it was like triggering. It was like, oh, it felt like a commentary on like our world, like our country, and how like certain groups are being like kicked out or not welcome here anymore.
Silenced.
Yeah, as an adult now, like watching this movie and in our current political climate, there are things that we noticed or felt that maybe we wouldn't have if we were watching the musical, decades ago. The fact that Cynthia Erivo is a Black woman being played, right?
Yeah.
Like they were so coded in like racism. The movie was powerful in the fact that it was able to kind of hit deeper and pull on different topics, but it was still tough to watch. So grateful they dove into it, but the othering of Elphaba from the time she's a child by her dad was brutal. Then the classmates making fun of her, and then of course Dr. Dillamond being kicked out. I was like, ooh, this is a lot, but made sense for the story.
All the unique people, all the othered people in that society are being targeted and villainized and demonized, right? Like, Cynthia Erivo was trying to help everyone, right? Like, Glinda said she's trying to help people. She's good. But it's like she's aligning herself with, the people who are not good, right? So, Shelby and I talked about this right after we saw the movie. It's like, this movie to me was a big critique on, like, who's controlling the narratives, right? Who's controlling the media, who's telling the stories, right? Because they're saying, don't trust Elphaba. She's lying about everything. And it's like, well, actually, they're the liars. She was the one trying to help people and the animals, right? And she's deemed wicked when she's really the one who was trying to help people in the first place. I was like, oh my gosh, of course they're trying to villainize the Black woman. It was a lot. It was a lot. Her allies, all the animals are getting kicked out and silenced. I was just like, oh my goodness. Like, what did you guys think of Dr. Gentleman and the animals? Like, what do you think that kind of represented? Because Shelby was, I feel like it could have been a lot of things. Yeah.
From like my own kind of reading into the sort of propaganda, and it felt very like utilitarian coded, and almost like for me it resonated sort of like with World War II and genocide and Nazism. And I think because a lot of the posters in the beginning reminded me of like propaganda I saw. I took some Cold War classes in history in my school, and that felt like very much like Russian propaganda posters or things like that. It felt very much talking about kind of the othering of people on great grand scales. And I think Oz is kind of one of those, for more like political sort of othering of people in power. I think that's kind of how I was resonating, and it's definitely hard to watch. Like, it kind of almost reminded me of like, I think 1984 by George Orwell, which is all about sort of like propaganda and like you think that you're with the good people and then turns out psych, like they're also bad. And I felt like
you have the big brother figure looming
yeah,
over you like the
exactly.
wizard.
Oz, literally, yeah. I felt like this adaptation just had another layer because, of course, we're talking more about people of color and obviously having a Black woman as the lead, and very also like choices they made about her styling, like that are very having her hair in braids. I think also they were very much being like Cynthia Erivo is a Black woman who is a green witch. I don't know if the kids got it, but I feel like the older audience was probably a little more like, ooh, yikes.
Yeah. It was one of those things I wasn't expecting that to be part of the plot. And so it was kind of like, okay, I'm glad like we're going there. We are going to this deeper level. And so I was shocked and I was glad that they're discussing it. Like, I'm glad that it's not just this plot about these two girls who have, like, you know, a petty little battle. It's like, no, it's a deeper conversation now, especially in this political landscape. So it is hard to watch, but it is conversations that we need to have.
I'm curious what you guys thought. I remember after the movie ended, you know, I'm an Ariana Grande fan. I've been an Ariana Grande fan. Like, I've listened, right? I watched her in Victorious, you know, when it came out. And I remember listening to her first album, buying the whole thing, right? Like, I've been a fan of hers for a long time. Like, she's clearly a fan, a student of Wicked, right? Like, when we watched that Peacock special, she was like, oh, I got to see the original cast and I got to meet Kristen Chenoweth and I got to go backstage. I was like, oh my goodness, how did you get to go backstage and meet Kristen Chenoweth? But anyways, so she clearly is a student of this musical, and it just felt like she wasn't playing her, and I guess that was kind of the point. Like, she wasn't being Ariana Grande. It felt like she was being Kristen Chenoweth as Glinda. Like, it kind of felt like she was trying to emulate Kristen Chenoweth's Glinda so much that it kind of felt like a caricature to me. Her voice, like, and she was doing the nasally thing, and she was kind of doing the growls, like, kind of exactly like Kristen Chenoweth, right? As someone who memorized, you know, Popular and Defying Gravity, it sounded like she was just mimicking Kristen Chenoweth's Glinda. There was maybe a little bit of like overacting at some points and like the hair flipping. I didn't love Ariana Grande's performance, but I thought she did a good job, but there's just a few things about it that I didn't love. Like, what did you guys think of her Glinda?
I kind of felt the same as someone who hasn't seen Kristen Chenoweth's Glinda, but I've seen so many clips. Like, I've been exposed to
Yeah.
Idina Menzel and Kristen Chenoweth as Glinda and Elphaba. So I think walking out of the film, I was like, whoa, Ariana Grande really like committed to this character.
Yes.
And then remembering all the things that Kristen Chenoweth does as Glinda, I was like, oh, it did feel like Ariana Grande playing Kristen Chenoweth. Even though like it was successful, it was just like
Yes.
didn't feel as natural for her with the hair. It was like this, it was this still this character, and it works for the movie and the plot, but I did feel the same.
Here's my hot take. You just inspired me hearing that, because I was like, there's been something about Ariana Grande that I just can't get over. And I know that they make a reference to this in the musical. I mean, you could easily change it. I don't like that she was blonde. I'm just gonna say it. I think the blonde hair looks not good. And maybe it's just because as a brunette girly and growing up and having a little sister who's blonde, you know, I have a complex, and I'm like, what's wrong with brunette people? We can be hot and just as beautiful.
Yeah.
She should have been brunette, just because maybe that would have also helped her feel less like a caricature. Because Kristen Chenoweth is blonde. Like, she's blondie, that's who she plays. Like, she's got that sort of bubbliness. But I think Ariana Grande probably, I don't know, like, I wonder if they styled her more like herself. I wonder if they also were trying to make Ariana Grande as much Ariana Grande like, because I know when she auditioned, she once went in with makeup. And then they had her come back without makeup because they just couldn't remove her from the pop star image. So I wonder if that was also intentional, but I don't know. I think I would have liked to have seen her as a brunette, and maybe that's just because I'm sick of the blonde, beautiful trope. I'm just so over it. She did feel like Kristen, like a little mini Kristen Chenoweth for me, for sure.
Right. Well, a lot of people are talking about the Glindafication of Ariana Grande just in general, right?
I
Like,
know.
she's just blonde all the time now, right? That she's never been blonde before. So, but now she's just blonde. Her voice is Glinda now, right? She's always kind of had a deeper voice, but now it's a bit higher in her interviews and everything. So she's become the character.
When you're a parent, every day brings a fresh hell to deal with. In other words, there's always something. If you're looking for a parenting podcast with two moms who really get it, a show that will make you laugh, but also give you ideas for actually making things a little easier, check out What Fresh Hell, Laughing in the Face of Motherhood.
Amy and Margaret are like having funny mom friends who are there to remind you you're not alone, and it won't always be this hard.
Amy and Margaret are both moms of 3, but with completely opposite parenting styles. Margaret is team, it'll probably be fine. And Amy is team, let's make another spreadsheet.
In every episode of What Fresh Hell, they offer lots of laughs, but also practical advice, parenting strategies, and tips to empower you as a parent.
And with over 800 episodes in their playlist, if you've dealt with it, Amy and Margaret have probably talked about it.
For the pickup line, for the soccer sideline, for your commute, put What Fresh Hell on your playlist. Laugh in the face of motherhood. Search What Fresh Hell wherever you listen to podcasts, or head to whatfreshhellpodcast.com.
Support Amy and Margaret, y'all. Red flag, green flag, 1, 2, 3. So let's just get into it. Our first question for y'all is it a red flag to date a co-star like Ariana Grande dating Ethan Slater?
As someone who's in theater
Please tell us.
and an actor, oh, there's so much drama. Like, if there's like people dating, it's like everyone knows and everyone's like wants the tea, but it's kind of like really hard to resist because you are with these people like all the time. It is something about like if you're cast in the same film show, the universe kind of like bringing you together in this interesting way, and if you do connect, then for me could be a warning sign. But I also think it is a place where a lot of people have found each other, and I've made a connection in theater once, and I wouldn't want that to be like disbanded just because if we were in the same film or the same show together. So I can't, I as an actor, it's and wanting to protect my maybe future relationships possibly can't say that it's a red flag.
I also have a similar stance, but I think context really matters, like so many things. And I know that there was a lot of drama around Ariana Grande because Ethan Slater had just had a kid, and was newly married, and then to kind of like, were they divorced, were they separated? Like that's where it's maybe more of a red flag. Like, are we have a history of breaking up married slash partnered people? Yeah, I don't know if that's so much about co-stars or just more personal like history, but I think like it could be a green flag mostly because I am such a Zendaya and Tom Holland stan, so I'm like, and
Yes.
Spider-Man brought them together and they were told so many times, don't date your co-star, don't date your co-star, and now they are my favorite Hollywood couple of all time. So again, I'm like, I feel like just to like save face, if I ever meet them, I can't be like, that's a red flag, but I do think context is important.
I agree. I think context matters a lot. With Ariana and Ethan Slater, it seems a little messy, right? We don't really know what happened. But right, I agree. Tom Holland and Zendaya, we can never hate on them. We have to stand. We have no choice but to stand. Our next question for you is it a green flag to become and embrace your character? So kind of like we were saying, the Glindafication of Ariana Grande, is that great? I mean, Emily, as an actor, is that good, to become and embrace, your character?
I think I'm guilty of this. In middle school, in my wee ages of becoming the actor that I am today, I played Elle Woods in Legally Blonde. And to this day, I still have a sticker on my laptop that says pink is my signature color. And so I really did walk away from that show being Elle Woods, like Elle Wood Eyes. That doesn't quite verb as well, but I think I definitely took a little bit of her with me. And it's interesting. I think as actors, I think we do take a little bit of our character along with us the rest of our life. I don't think me playing Elle Woods would like make me want to dye my hair like bleach blonde. I don't think I would go that far into like fully changing how I speak or my voice. I do think it's important to still maintain a sense of who we are. It's definitely not a red flag to walk away with part of your character, especially if you connect with them in a certain way and maybe it brought something out of you that you really like about yourself and maybe hadn't been showing about yourself. I think Elle Woods made me more outgoing and confident in certain social situations. And I think I'm always going to be grateful that I had that opportunity to play Elle Woods. At first, without comparing it to myself, I would have been like, oh, Ari, like just stay true to who you are. But it's like, maybe that is who she wants to be. And I'm not going to judge her for that. So I had to remember my Elle Woods moment as a middle schooler and how I think I still carry a little bit of her with me.
I think I'm going to be a little bit more controversial. Emily and I are not fan of method acting. It's something that we really think is a cop-out slash only
It's a man's
white
world.
method.
Christian Bale, Walking Phoenix.
Yeah, and I think like if you're totally embracing your character to like become your character, I think that's dangerous. Like, I think Austin Butler not being able to talk normally after playing Elvis is super not okay. Like, 'cause you need to have a separation if you're an actor. Like, it's not about like you become, but like my sister said, like the core of who my sister is didn't become Elle Woods. And so I think like that can be a warning sign if it is someone who is truly, if you're not comfortable with who you are. But I think that's more of like the mental health aspect of things and like your own self identity. And I think it could be a warning sign to some actors if they feel like they're constantly trying to find themselves, and every time they do a movie they become a new character. I think then that says maybe there's something more going on internally. Then it might be like the band-aid to like the real issues. I still don't know why the blonde, but I just feel so bad to say that, but she just has beautiful dark features, and the blonde is not working for me.
I'm with you. I think Ariana Grande's like dark hair as well as like her red hair from Victoria's days look great. So I feel like it would have worked if they had let her rock her natural hair, do a little red.
Yeah, kick the blondes out. We don't. I don't. I'm not. You don't need me. It's fine.
Oh, I guess we shouldn't other the blondes. We can't
Yes.
other the blondes,
We
but
love full hair,
we
bright colors.
absolutely. But I think it can be fun to sometimes break convention.
Definitely. I'm
Completely.
in support of that.
So, since we're towards the end of our episode now, we always like to end with whether or not you thought the title was a wait or a watch. So, for you both, is Wicked a wait or a watch?
Watch.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely.
Go watch it and go see it in theaters. Like
Yes.
there's something about seeing something on the big screen. Go.
I mean, I would say if you're adverse to small children in your viewing experience, maybe pick a different
Yep.
watch. I made the mistake of watching Inside Out 2 like at a matinee, and there were so many screaming children that it took me out of the experience for a hot second. So I think just caveat that, if you want the late night viewing, maybe.
That's a good point. Yeah, don't see it 5:30 on a Tuesday if you're trying to avoid children either. But I'm also a watch. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was well done. I thought kids could watch it and enjoy it with the pretty colors and the animals, but also there were very adult themes and things that make you really think and spark conversations. I did think it was like slightly overhyped because everyone's like, this is amazing, this is the best movie ever, but I did think it was quite good.
Shocker, I'm also a watch. I personally feel like it's one of the better musical adaptations I've seen. The story hit deeper as an adult and as a Black woman, which we've alluded to before. And I kind of want to see it again, but I don't really want to pay for another ticket, so I'll probably wait till it's on Peacock. Can't wait for next year. Part 2.
Yes, that's Liv and I always like to lead off with our expectations for if there's a sequel coming or a next part. What do we hope? What do we fear for part 2?
Wicked Part 2 comes out on November 21st, 2025, people. So basically a year from now. Very excited. Given how well I think Act 1, like the first movie, was done, I'm hopeful that Act 2 will also be well done. They've already filmed it, right? So I feel like there's not much they can change, like maybe with editing or like how they do things in post, they can make some updates. I guess my biggest thing is I wonder how they'll market it. Like, will they just continue to do what they've already done? Are there going to be new things? I guess I'm excited to see like how they're going to promote seeing Wicked Part 2.
And I also am curious how there will be a divide between Glinda and Elphaba, so I'm curious how that will play off. How does Elphaba become the Wicked Witch of the West, and how does Glinda become the Good Witch? So I'm curious how that will play out, because I thought I knew more of what happened in the musical, but clearly I don't remember anything. So I honestly don't really know how it's going to end. I just know, one's the Wicked Witch, one's the Good Witch. So let's see how that happens.
I also am really curious because I feel like the 2 most popular songs from the Wicked musical were in this half. So I'm curious how they're gonna like hype up the second half with like the music, because I know as someone who hardly knows Wicked, I knew both Defying Gravity and Popular, and now I'm like, I have no idea what is gonna be in the next songs. I think they set themselves up for a really good place, and I really am hoping that it won't fall in its face. I don't think it will, but I think I'm cautiously optimistic. I love for them to just hit it out of the park. And it is like an interesting story in terms of like almost a villain origin story. And so I think that's I think that can always be hard to do well sometimes. I think we've seen some good adaptations. I don't know if you guys like the first Joker. We like the first Joker, but then we saw what happened to Joker 2. So, hopefully Wicked Part 2 is not a Joker 2 and is good.
Yeah. And I kind of doubt it because, I mean, the plot's already written. Like, they already have, like, it's already there. The story's there. It's not like a sequel of them creating something entirely new. It's a part 2. It's act 2. So I'm curious to see, how does Elphaba become the Wicked Witch of the West? That's what I
Right.
need to see, because this was like, oh, wait, I still have no idea. Like, she is still like the good one in this act 1. So I'm like, how in the world does she transform, or what happens? So I'm really, really excited to see it and see how it plays out. And Shelby, that was a good point about marketing, because I bet they're going to market it the finale or something, because it's like they
True.
didn't market this one as like quote unquote part 1. Actually, one of my best friends, she didn't know. The credits started rolling and she turned to me and she said, "Where's the rest of it?" And I was like, "Oh, you poor girl."
Oh no, sweetie.
Blindside. Oof.
Yeah, blindsided, truly. So luckily, no one's gonna be blindsided with this one. They'll know it's the end. So I'm very excited.
And Olivia, to your point about music, I've heard that they're making some original songs for the second one. So I think that could be exciting. For the Little Mermaid adaptation, like last year, the live action one, the new songs weren't the best. So hopefully with this, they'll be better than that. But I do think For Good is one also popular song, and that's in the second one.
That's
Like
right.
the
Yeah.
second half of the musical. So hopefully people will be excited for that. And of course, the 97th Oscars next year, will Wicked be nominated? There's buzz, of course, with set design and costume design, but also some people are saying maybe Best Picture, which I would be like pleasantly surprised. So we'll have to keep an eye out.
Yeah.
I'm hoping it'll be nominated.
Yeah, and I'm curious about acting too. Will either of our two leading ladies be nominated? Because
Yeah,
I
I feel like Cynthia Erivo has a better chance.
I know, but I've heard
I
more people
agree.
talking about Ariana Grande being nominated, which
Oh.
I don't know, but maybe that's just this like the weird film circles I'm in.
Well, if you enjoyed this episode of Sisters Who Watch, please give us 5 stars wherever you listen. 5 stars, please. Yes, and you can support us by following us on social media at Sisters Who Watch. You can buy our merch on our website. You can Zell us too.
And we're on social media at Sisters Who Watch everywhere. We want to hear from y'all, so please comment, DM, let us know how you're feeling. We're really appreciative of the support. And of course, we're so grateful for our guests, Olivia and Emily, for being here with us today. Remind everyone how to find Sisters in the Stars.
You can find Sisters in the Stars on pretty much all socials at Sisters in the Stars. We're most active on Instagram, and we just recently launched our YouTube, which we're super excited about. We also have a website that you can find, sistersinthestars.com. Yeah, those are probably our biggest ones to find and connect with us. Thank you so much. It has been such a pleasure to be on the pod. And yeah, just talking to some other sisters about media. How fun.
Woo!
Watch.
The dream. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you.
Stay
Thank you.
watching.
Watching.